What's up, everybody, and welcome to your Tuesday edition of Pelicans Daily, brought to you by FanArch. I'm your host, David Grubb, editor-in-chief of thebirdrights.com. The Pelicans and the 76ers, or at least two teams wearing their uniforms, met up at the Smoothie King Center on Monday night. Let's dive into last night's action, where the New Orleans Pelicans, despite being extremely shorthanded, secured a 112-99 victory over the Philadelphia 76ers at the Smoothie King Center. With both teams dealing with a lot of injuries, the Pelicans basically had to put their depth or the amount of players they had on display and some resilience, especially coming off a back-to-back, where you had to travel from Detroit to New Orleans, play the matinee on Sunday, and then come back for Monday night at home against the Sixers. Carlo Makovich led the way, matching his career high in points with 19, led the team with 19, also had 8 rebounds. Antonio Reeves came off the bench with 17 points. He had 5 3-pointers. Antonio Reeves came into this game shooting the ball well, shot it well during this game. He made 12 consecutive field goals over 3 games before missing his first shot in the second half. He missed his last 2 shots of the game, finished 6 of 8 from the floor. In the paint, Yves Misi did most of his heavy lifting in the first half. He had 12 of his 16 points in the first half, finished with 16 and 9. Kelly Olynyk almost had a triple double, flirted around with it. 14 points, 11 rebounds, 7 assists for Kelly. And then Elfrid Payton, who just rejoined the team a couple of games ago, came back and handed out 14 assists in 25 minutes. Pelicans had a nice lead at the half. They were up by 9. The Sixers finally put together a surge. The third quarter has been a struggle for the Pelicans all season long. The Sixers, though, came out firing in that third quarter, made 6 3-point attempts, took a 67-65 lead, forced a timeout by the Pelicans. Pelicans came back from that timeout with a run basically that ended up deciding the game, 16-2 run to close the third quarter. We're up 15 in the going into the fourth. They got big shots in that stretch from Reeves, from Carlo, from and Jeremiah Robinson Earl came off the bench and gave the Pelicans some good minutes as well. Philly had a little quick run at the start of the fourth, a little bit into the fourth, cut the lead to 14, but the Pelicans were able to close them out down the stretch. Um, Another good night of really good passing for the Pelicans, 36 assists for them in the win. Of course, Elfrid Payton led the way with his 14. It was the 20th win of the season for the Pelicans, improving their overall record to 20-53. Um, they'll try to build on this one for what it's worth on Friday when they host the Golden State Warriors. We'll see if Stephen Curry is available. He usually does not play when the Pelicans play the Warriors, particularly in New Orleans. But considering that the Warriors are still fighting for their spot in the playoffs, that game is very important to the Warriors. We'll see if Steph is available. But again, there was a depth game where the Pelicans had to go deep into their bench. I think uh, the only player who did not play who was listed as being available was C.J. McCollum, who was out of the game for rest. But everyone else who did suit up did play. Um, and it was a good opportunity for the youngsters to step up when given that opportunity, given a chance to get extended minutes. No, this was not the Philadelphia 76ers. I mean, the Sixers were, except the Sixers were basically missing their entire starting lineup and their top reserves. I mean, I think 8 or 9 of their top 10 players were out tonight on Monday night. So that win is taken with a giant, huge grain of salt for the Pelicans. But hey, a win is a win. It's got to feel good for those guys. They are professionals. You do want to come out and perform well, particularly at home. But I wouldn't get too excited and start expecting too many more wins for the Pelicans because though they got their 20th win of the season, I think it's safe to say at this stage of the season with only 9 games left that they have moved full steam ahead into tanking the rest of the season. Now, why would I say that? When the Pelicans have not really shown a proclivity for tanking throughout the season the way that we would look at tanking normally. Overall, I do think that there is a difference in opinion with the way the front office maybe wanted things to be handled down the stretch. Though I think they tried to give Willie Green every opportunity during the season to kind of give them a reason to hope that the Pelicans could turn around and maybe chase the play-in. I think they wanted to give him that opportunity, considering how many games this team won last year, trying to build on it. Although the injuries were made this, I think, based on the way the Pelicans started the season and just the history of the NBA, the way that they got out of the gates and what you're talking about with the Pelicans were by the end of November, essentially, the season statistically was over, though they were not mathematically eliminated until, last month. Um, the season was over by the end of November, based on what the team's record was and the history of teams coming back from that and making a playoff run. It was nearly impossible. But I think the Pelicans in the front office, David Griffin wanted to give them every opportunity, and especially with this fan base, that I think the relationship is very strained between the Pelicans front office and its fan base now, over some of the actions that have been taken by this franchise over the past 6 years. Um, whether it's on the court decisions or the things that have been done around the team, I think that there's still a lot of bad blood regarding the amenities within the Smoothie King Center and how the offerings of services, how fans feel that they're treated sometimes there. The level of entertainment is something that there's always been a sticking point about. But beyond all those other things, I think ultimately this organization allowed Willie Green to coach as if he had a chance of winning things. I think Willie's job every night is to coach his team to try to win. That is who he is, and that's what you. I don't think it's ethical, in professional sports, to ask people to go out and try to lose, to do things that are going to compromise the competitive spirit of the game. You see, and I know there are people probably rolling their eyes at those comments, considering how these leagues have failed to handle um, things like the Utah Jazz and the NBA and their outward embrace of tanking, in a very public way, of not putting NBA caliber lineups on the court on a nightly basis, simply for the fact that they're trying to chase the odds of getting the number one pick. And we can have this discussion again, and maybe we will, regarding just how difficult it is to win with a number one pick. We have talked about this in regards to Zion Williamson. It is very hard to win a championship with a number one pick. Um, the history of the NBA just says it doesn't happen very frequently, particularly since the advent of the modern era, beginning, I guess, I would say starting with going back to 1990. I think we've discussed how rare it is. So, while the Jazz have been experts at tanking and have done this at a level maybe that we've not seen it done this way. You've seen bad teams put on the court, and the Pelicans, it's easy to say. I think it's fair to say that the Pelicans are a bad team more than just a team that has conspired to have a bad season. I think when you look at what the Jazz did and what other teams have done in the past, is that those teams went into the year looking to have a bad season. The comparison has been with teams like the Memphis Grizzlies last year that had a bad season, but ultimately it set them up for a rebound, due to injuries. But the overall structural integrity of that team was not broken. The injuries may have gave them a setback, but the overall structural integrity of who they were under Taylor Jenkins as the head coach, who they are, the identity of that team has not really changed. It's still Ja Morant's team, Jaren Jackson III's team. It's still built around their talents, Desmond Bain. It's still built around what they're capable of doing. They just got thrown off. The Pelicans from year to year have had a different agenda, a different plan, a different style, a different idea. There's not been any consistency throughout the board. So it's not surprising that this year there's also a lack of consistency for the Pelicans when it comes to executing their plan and deciding when it was time to move on from chasing a postseason berth to understanding that you just needed to get in position to get the best draft pick possible. It's too late to do anything else now, quite honestly. The Pelicans are in a position where they could potentially move up to third. That is not without possibility. There's a decent chance that if things go really bad down the stretch, and the Pelicans do have a difficult schedule, that if things go really bad down the stretch, they could catch number three. It's nearly impossible, too, for them to fall back to 5 or 6 at this stage as well. They've still got a good 4 games between them in spots 5 and 6. So unless the Pelicans somehow slip up and win too many games, they're not going to fall back. And I don't see, again, looking at this schedule, how they're going to win too many games to fall back any further. So they seem to be locked into either this 3 or 4 spot. You don't have any choice anymore. But now everything has so conspired against Willie Green as far as being able to put out NBA caliber teams on a nightly basis, particularly on the defensive end. The Pelicans, there's a reason that they've been so bad defensively with their starters, with most of their guys intact. This was the worst defensive team in the history of the franchise. Now, without these guys healthy and Zion Williamson probably going to miss more games, Trey Murphy done for the year, Herb Jones already done for the year, DeJounte Murray already done for the year. CJ McCollum taking more rest days as he probably should be doing at this stage, considering there's no competitive advantage to be gained, no professional advantage to be gained in running CJ into the ground and giving him 35 minutes a night, even though he is your primary scoring option at this stage. It still doesn't. If you're planning on getting something good out of CJ next year, start resting him now, get his legs back in shape, before you figure out what you're going to do with him. But if that with that being the case, it has become almost impossible for the Pelicans to put out NBA caliber rotations defensively. So the minutes are going to change dramatically. We're going to see more minutes for guys like Antonio Reeves. We're going to see more minutes for Jordan Hawkins, though Jordan it's hard to say that he has earned the right to have more minutes. I think that Jordan Hawkins, to me, has played himself out of the Pelicans' rotation going forward into the future. He does not look capable as a scorer on a night-to-night basis. He does not understand NBA-level defense on a night-to-night basis. He does not contribute as a passer. He does not contribute as a defender. He does not contribute in ways that I think contribute to winning basketball, especially if he's not making shots. And there's nothing to indicate in his NBA resume that he's a shooter. So you're going to get more minutes from him. You're going to go get more minutes from Jamal Cain. You're going to get more minutes from Carlo Makovich, which is fine on the offensive end, but Carlo is still a subpar defender. You're going to get plenty of minutes of Yves Missi, and you could say shut down Yves, but he's a rookie, and he needs to learn to play through these minutes. If you're going to condition him to play 70 plus games a year, he needs to start doing that now. You just don't need to play Yves Missi 35 to 40 minutes a night, but he should be starting. He should continue to get out there. He's got a lot to learn about the NBA the level of basketball it takes to play in the NBA. So you're going to get more minutes, but there's also where do you find these guys? So you're going to end up with these Elfrid Payton call-ups, who's a veteran who can help you in certain ways. But Elfrid also has his limitations. There's a reason he's not in an NBA rotation, and it's not just because the league is funky like that. Certainly, his money as a veteran has a lot to say with it. There are cheaper alternatives to him, though I think his skill set, it shows that he should be in some ways running at least a second unit for a team. He creates too many scoring opportunities, though he is unwilling to score himself. He creates too many scoring opportunities for others for him not being able to run a second unit when there are so many backup guards in the NBA who cannot run an offense. There are a lot of guys with the title of point guard who can't run point guard. But overall, I say all that to say this. The Pelicans are now in a situation where they cannot do anything but tank the rest of the way. Due to the lack of players you have available, due to the remaining schedule, you are tanking. Whether you want to believe it or not, whether that's the intent or not, this is where the Pelicans are. They are not going out with a mindset each night of how can we win the most games this season. You want to compete in your minutes, and you want a player from 1 to 12. If you get into the game, you want them to play their absolute best. But with these combinations, you're not putting your best on the floor. And there's a difference in that. I think there's an ethical way to tank. And an ethical way to tank is we're playing guys legitimately. They've got to get minutes. We're seeing what we have. Putting them together, we know is not going to be the optimum for us to win at occasion. So you mitigate that by making sure that those lineups are mixed and matched. And Willie Green did actually talk about this on Monday night. That's the hard thing in mixing and matching these lineups is you can't just put five guys out there. You have to have defined roles. You have to have guys playing in positions that they can succeed. And so putting five rookies or five guys who've never played together on the floor together doesn't help at all. It doesn't make things easier for those guys, and you don't learn things. Just putting guys out there to fail together doesn't teach you about their talent. It doesn't teach you about their ability to execute in the NBA because that's not what's going to happen on a night-to-night basis in the NBA. You're not going to be put out there with the four other worst players on your roster on a daily basis and told to go out and win basketball games. That's what the Sixers were facing tonight, is having guys on the floor who had no business being on the floor together for the entire scope of the game. Not for 5 to 7 minute stretches, not for 3 minute bursts. For the entire game, they were putting out 5 man combinations that would never be repeated in a normal NBA game. You can get away with that for small segments of the time, but not in large sample sizes. So, um, the short of it is, the Pelicans are not going to play like they are tanking. You can't ask them. You can't ask Willie Green to do that. But you have put them now in a position, as far as this roster construction goes, that they are in fully into tank mode. All right, let's move along. The rookies, we just talked about them a little bit. They do have a lot to prove, and those guys cannot afford to take nights off. Pelicans got really good nights from their rookie class on Monday. Eves Misi again with 16 points and 9 rebounds. He went 6 of 7 from the floor. Eves really played well in the first half again, where he scored 12 of his points. He has been in double figures in 13 of his last 13 games. So shooting above 50% from the floor in 10 of those 13 with 3 double doubles. So he did seem to have hit a rookie wall at one point in the season, but again, he seems to be picking it back up. There are still big holes in his game. You'd like to see him get smoother. My thing to him this offseason, if I'm the New Orleans Pelicans and I'm talking to him as a coaching staff, putting together what I want him to work on this offseason, there's only two things that I really want to work on. And these are big concepts, they have details within them. But the two main things, number one is getting um, his hand strength and dexterity up higher. Whether it's working with tennis balls to catch, whether it's working with strength for his hands and strengthening his grip, Yves Misi has to be able to catch the ball in traffic. He's got to be able to catch it when it's above his head. He's got to be able to catch it on lobs. He's got to be able to catch it, defensively and secure rebounds. His biggest problem this year, more than anything else, has been his hands. As far as just his one physical shortcoming that you would like to see him work on, it's his hands. The other part is I'm simplifying his role on offense. There are times when you've seen he's put together some nice footwork on offense, but more times than not, he's thinking the game of basketball way too much instead of playing the game of basketball. I'm simplifying Eve's role. If I'm Eves Misi, I'm calling up Zion Williamson and saying, "What are you doing this summer? I want to be where you are." Because the thing I'm working on with Zion is pick and roll. If I'm the screener for Zion, what do I do on my roll? How does Zion throw that lob? Same if I'm working with guards. I'm screening and I'm rolling and I'm finishing at the rim over and over again. That's what I'm working. If I'm the coaching staff, I'm telling him dunk everything. Dunk everything. Don't try to lay anything up. Dunk everything. Two hands. Go and attack the rim. That's the mindset you need from Yves Misi going into next season. Simplify everything. On defense, he's got to watch a ton of film and get more acclimated with what to do in situation as a situational defender. That's what he can do in the classroom defensively and with film work. But on the court, it's simplified. I'm working on my manual dexterity. I'm getting stronger with my hands. And then on the other part of it is I'm simplifying my role offensively. We look at Carlo Makovic, again, who tied his season's best scoring output with 19 points, including 3 3-pointers. Carlo also had 8 rebounds and was a team high plus 22 in his 22 minutes on the court. It was the fifth time for him in the last 10 games that he's reached double figures. Carlo's biggest problem right now is, again, his lack of awareness on the court, particularly when it comes to fouls. He had 5 fouls tonight against the Philadelphia 76ers, and he has four or more fouls in 11 out of his 35 games this season. So, in basically 1 out of every 3 games, Carlo's going to give you 4 fouls. That means he's putting the other team at the free throw line. That means he's usually out of position defensively, which means the other team is securing second chance opportunities. It also means that they're getting past him and getting to the bucket. He is not an NBA level defender, but the scoring upside, his potential as an offensive player remains sky high. If you were just counting on Carlo Makovic to come off the bench and score points, I think he has a ceiling of somewhere he could be a 15 to 17 per night scorer for you if that's his only job. But unfortunately, that's not what this is. This is basketball. You've got to play. You've got to have a well-rounded game. He does not have that currently. That is not what you're getting from him. His rebounds are more a function of his athleticism than his awareness within space. But I do think that what Carlo has earned is, again, he is your third big, however it fits. He is not your backup center. because hopefully you're either getting Yves Misi as it comes back and he's upgraded himself as your starter, or you got a better starting center next year. But Carlo's not number one and he's not number two at center. At power forward, he's not a number one because of his defense, and I don't think he's a number two yet as your backup power forward. That's really kind of where Kelly Olynyk fits in as your spacing four in this regard. So Kelly is your number one big off the bench, and I think Carlo becomes your number two big off the bench. He could be your number three if Eves becomes your second big off the bench, and Carlo would move back in that rotation. But he's a guy that should get minutes on a nightly basis on if you've got better defenders to play alongside him on the front court. But I think his potential is still there. The big story, though, for Monday night was Antonio Reeves, who came off the bench with 17 points. His fifth game of the season with double figures, his second of the last three games. He also set a new career high with 5 3-pointers. His seventh game of the season with at least 2 3-pointers. In this month alone, he's 12 of 18 from beyond the arc. That's 66%. That's easy math. Since January 1st, he's 22 of 42 on his 3-pointers. That's shooting 52.3% overall. Misi and Makovich have made their statements, I think, about positioning themselves for long term roles with the Pelicans. I think that they, at the very least, are in the conversation. Certainly, both of them. Eves under his rookie contract, Carlo under a rookie deal now as well. It seems like now, though, Antonio Reeves is making his own case about his future in New Orleans. And I think the guy who needs to be paying attention the most is Jordan Hawkins, who it seems that Antonio Reeves, at the very least, and I'm not saying that Antonio Reeves is a starting level NBA player, but at the very least, the one skill that either one of them should have, shooting, Antonio Reeves has a marked advantage over Jordan Hawkins when it comes to that skill alone. Everything else, even if you wanted to call them a wash, if you wanted to say ball handling is same, I would say again, I would say Antonio is a better ball handler. Size, Antonio's bigger. Physically, he's more imposing. I would say. I think they both certainly have to learn about the NBA game. And Antonio's a little bit older than Jordan, a more experienced player, a guy who had 5 years of college basketball to his credit, whereas Jordan came out after his sophomore year. Um, but to me, Antonio Reeves is making the case that if you're going to bet on one young shooter on this roster, that he's the guy to bet on, and not Jordan Hawkins. All right. Um, While the Pelicans are experiencing some March sadness as the season prepares to come to an end and limps to its foregone conclusion, there is plenty of interest around the country in March Madness as America gets introduced to what will become the next wave of NBA talent. All eyes certainly were on players like Cooper Flag and VJ Edgecombe as they opened up NCAA tournament play. So let's take a quick look at how some of those prospects had performed. Flag has led the Duke Blue Devils to the Sweet 16 after wins over Mount St. Mary's and Baylor. There were concerns about the impact of his ankle injury that he suffered in the ACC tournament, but Cooper Flag has averaged 16 points, 8 rebounds, 5.5 assists, and 1.5 blocks in 25.5 minutes per game. He's 9 for 16 from beyond the 3-point arc. Duke will face Arizona on Thursday. VJ Edgecombe and the Baylor Bears were eliminated by Duke, of course, over the weekend. That likely brings his collegiate career to a close. In 2 tournament games, he averaged 15 points, 5.5 rebounds, just 1.5 assists. Wasn't a very aggressive on offense, finishing 9 of 20 from the field and just 3 for 11 from distance. His upside is higher than his production right now, though. The pro game may be better suited for his overall skill set, but he does need to improve as a shooter and as a creator. The Pelicans decide to go big in the draft. They could be looking at Maryland center Derek Queen. Queen has the Terrapins in the Sweet 16 as well. 6'10 freshman has made his impression felt. He's averaging 14.5 points, 10.5 rebounds, and 2 blocks per game in the tournament so far. He had the game-winning shot against Colorado State, and he also knocked down 2 of his 3 3-point attempts in that game. A guy not known as a 3-point shooter during the regular season. I think he only made, I know he made fewer than 10 3-pointers in the regular season, though to have 2 in one game in the NCAA tournament when it's pressure, a game that they only won by 1 possession, is an interesting sign for Derek Queen, who has definitely had some big games this season for Maryland. Finally, you get Texas guard Trey Johnson of the Texas Longhorns. They were eliminated in the first round of the tournament, but not because of anything that he didn't do. Johnson scored 23 points in their loss to Xavier, making 4 of his 7 3-point attempts. At 6'6", he's the kind of scorer who's drawn comparisons to Allen Houston and Tyler Hero. Very silky smooth jump shot. Could be an exciting scorer to pair with Zion Williamson and Trey Murphy. The two other guys who have been mentioned as top prospects in this draft, you can check out my analysis of their scouting reports. Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey. You can check them out in previous episodes. Both of them are expected to go in the top 4 of the draft, but both failed to earn a bid to the tournament with Rutgers. We'll definitely be keeping our eyes on the big dance as the next potential Pelican competes for a national championship, maybe. That'll do it. That'll be a wrap for this episode of Pelicans Daily. Thank you so much once again for tuning in with us. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Let me know what you think about all the topics we're talking about each and every day. You can also follow me on social media at DM Grubb, as well as check out thebirdrights.com for more Pelicans coverage each and every day. Until the next time,